Everyone's favorite thing to watch in the NFL draft every year, Eric, sleepers. Sleepers. Who are the guys that the public is missing out on, the fans don't know of yet? What team is going to find a steal? Listen, we're not even just talking about day 3 of the draft. We're talking about guys that might go undrafted. So everybody thinks of the Puka Nakuas of the world, but how about a player that could even just be a third down back, a nice kick returner, things like that? And this class, there's a lot that I really like.
Yeah, that term sleeper gets thrown around a lot. So I guess my question for you before we get into it is, what constitutes a sleeper for you? Is it players from good programs? Is it guys with raw tools, guys who showed out at the combine? What does that distinction mean to you?
Definitely situation-based. I think the most ideal one you think of is really small school, tests like an NFL athlete, and has the production at the top of their conference, we'll say, or at least the top of their team. We're going to have a lot of examples like that. Then you also have the other kind of sleeper, the sleeper that could play for a Power 5 program, could be on a team that went to the college football playoff, but just couldn't find the field enough or got forgotten about because of injury. So sleeper can come in a lot of molds, but basically guys that are not getting enough buzz for a variety of different reasons.
Yeah, and just a note as we get to these names, these are not the highest ranked day 3 players at each position. These are names that Connor likes that are day 3 players for him that we want you to keep an eye on as we get into the NFL draft. So let's start at the running back position.
Yeah, let's jump right into 3 sleepers at running back, and I think you have to talk about Dylan Laube. Somebody from New Hampshire that, yes, he got a Senior Bowl invite, so calling him a sleeper at this point is a little bit of a stretch. But still, when you're coming out of New Hampshire, a level of competition that this guy dominated, I think he's a good athlete. He's a good pass catcher. He's your ideal third down running back. And Eric, you kind of said this even before we sat down to do this video, can do a little bit of everything. I think everybody talks about the pass catching, but maybe a guy that doesn't get enough credit for the rounded player he is.
Yeah, and definitely the pass catching is a huge attribute of the next guy, Keilan Robinson, who seems like at worst is a pass catcher with really good special teams value.
I mean, imagine being Keilan Robinson. The 2 players in front of you over the last 2 years, Jonathan Brooks, he'll probably be the first running back taken in this year's draft. Oh, and Bijan Robinson 2 years ago. So for Keilan Robinson, he's just been a forgotten player. Yes, there's not a ton of film considering the prospect that he is, in my opinion, draftable, undersized, under 200 pounds, not even 5'9", but 4'4", 240. Really good acceleration, and like you said, special teams, pass catching ability. Keilan Robinson is somebody to keep an eye on throughout this process.
And then another small school guy rounds out the running backs. It's Jaden Shearden from Monmouth. Is somebody who showed out against the lesser competition, struggled a little bit when he faced some of the bigger schools, but obviously there's something about him that you find interesting.
Right, and it's tough when you're on Monmouth because, yes, you might struggle against the bigger schools, but your offensive line was probably worse than you.
Exactly.
So there's not a lot of room to run for Jaden Shearden, but to be fair, why he's an outlier, 5'8", 187 pounds. I mean, his arm length would be 3rd percentile at the NFL level for his position, so he's just small, but he's fast. I mean, 4.45, that 1.5, 110-yard split, that's your really acceleration out of the gate. That's an 86th percentile. So we're talking about an NFL player that was highly productive at his level of competition as well. Shearden's a guy, though, unlike Keilan Robinson and Laube, I think to be an effective NFL player, you actually want him getting touches inside and outside.
Yeah, and we're going to start off the wide receiver section with another guy who's a small school but has the upside to really perform in the NFL.
Yeah, and that's Ryan Flournoy out of Southeast Missouri State. Wide receiver 30 for me right now. And small school product will turn 25 in October of his rookie season, but a size and speed athlete that dominated poor competition. He can climb the ladder, make plays above the rim, got a Senior Bowl invite, so he's definitely on the radar. I think he goes in the 6th round of this draft. And then Jha'quan Jackson from Tulane, another Senior Bowl guy, wide receiver 28 for me. Ed Reed's nephew, by the way. So the bloodlines are there for Jha'quan Jackson. I think he's a slot only at the next level, but he knows how to win over the top with vertical speed. So Jackson and Flournoy, they have the speed over the top that you like drafting those guys at the end of day 3, see if they can help you on special teams, and they usually hang on a roster as a wide receiver 6 or wide receiver 5. Yeah,
and then maybe my favorite name in the NFL draft, or certainly up there, is Bub Means from Pittsburgh, another guy who ran pretty well at the combine.
He did. He's got speed. He's an outside the numbers player, a perimeter receiver, wide receiver 31 for me. I think he's such a weird player because he looks so much more aggressive working outside the numbers, and then in the middle of the field, he did not have that same aggression at the catch point. So Means, not a well-rounded player, maybe more of a one-trick pony. But when your one trick is, hey, I'm faster than you and can win over the top, that's a really good trick to have.
Yeah, it's definitely a trick that NFL teams can make use of. Let's get to the big boys in the middle. We're going to start with the offensive lineman that we should know for day 3.
Yeah, and let's talk about Mason McCormick from South Dakota State, a great tester. He's going to play guard, I think, at the next level. Maybe he'll get some looks at center as well. You like that athleticism in an outside zone scheme. KT Leviston, the left tackle from Kansas State, played next to Cooper Beebe, one of the top guards in this draft. Leviston doesn't get enough love, probably because he was out of position at tackle. He needs to move inside, but he's the opposite of McCormick. He's a decent athlete, but he's a brawler instead. Get off the line of scrimmage, drive you backwards as far off the ball as I can. You look at Dylan McMahon, one of the lightest offensive linemen in this draft, a really athletic center, but you just wonder, can he hold up at that size? He needs to keep, putting mass on. And then Josiah Ezram from Eastern Kentucky. He played defensive line in high school. He came into college as a defensive lineman. He moves over to offensive lineman. Great size, great athletic gifts, needs more playing time, needs more seasoning. You look at the pass rushers here, the defensive line. Jalex Hunt, you want to talk about a position change. He transferred from Cornell as a defensive back. He goes to Houston Christian as a defensive lineman. He might go in the 3rd or 4th round. Javon Solomon from Troy, another Senior Bowl guy, undersized, but he knew how to get after the quarterback with his speed and burst off the ball. Situational pass rusher. Yobi Okianoma from Charlotte. Eric, this is a weird one. He has bounced around a lot of big programs. Alabama, Michigan, was supposed to be a super recruit. There's obviously things going off the field there, whether he was coachable or not, where he ends up at Charlotte, still productive, still has NFL traits, but you just wonder, why couldn't that guy hang around at a Power 5 program, Power 5 programs that are in the college football playoff every year? Yeah,
and you get another Power 5 program guy right after him in Logan Lee.
Yeah, and I don't have those questions about Logan Lee. Great tester, dirty work, 3 tech, good pass rusher, good burst, and the same could be said about Christian Boyd from Northern Iowa, one of the biggest snubs of the NFL Combine, but he did get an invite to the Shrine Game, dominated the one-on-one drills there for Christian Boyd.
Not a deep linebacker class in terms of day 3 sleepers, but there are some guys you want us to keep an eye on.
Yeah, J.D. Bertrand. I mean, when you are a starting linebacker in the middle of the Fighting Irish defense, you obviously got the brains and the brawn. I think that was Bertrand. You just wonder if he's a good enough athlete to be a 3-down linebacker at the next level. Curtis Jacobs is the opposite. I don't worry about the athleticism at all. I just worry about the green light coming on in terms of reading his keys and fitting the run. So 2 very different linebackers. And then we'll move to the DBs. I mean, I've been in your ear about Kamal Hayden. This is somebody from Tennessee that only played 7 games this year. He looked like one of the best corners in the country, and then he gets hurt. And that's a really sad tale because you wonder, would he be a 2nd-round pick if he didn't get the injury? Now he's going on day 3. Miles Harden from South Dakota played outside at South Dakota. He'll bump inside at the next level. Ball skills, toughness, tackler. You just love the DNA of a guy like that.
Yeah, certainly do. And there's a lot of really talented guys always go in the late rounds at cornerbacks, guys who make their hay either with special teams or in dime packages, stuff like that. And so you think that 2 of these other guys could be names that we need to know at the end of draft.
Yeah, Jarian Jones, a top 5 slot corner for me. Maybe doesn't have the twitch and agilities of a classic high-end slot player, but a tough tackler, great instincts, understands route concepts. Florida State defenders, all of them are underrated. Him, Renardo Green, Braden Fisk, and then Jarvis Brownlee, a late Senior Bowl call-up, really, really physical, not great size, but he knows how to use his size. So I think that corner list right there, they might be my favorite sleepers in this entire group.
Yeah, and obviously the favorite for a lot of people are going to be the names we're going to talk about here. Everybody wants to talk about the quarterbacks who could go late. They're looking for the next Brock Purdy, who's taken over for Tom Brady.
Yeah.
These are obviously not going to be sleepers. These are names you have heard before. They've been mentioned often. But these are quarterbacks who are probably going to hear their name called on day 3, and you think people need to know who they are.
Right. That's who you're looking for when you're going to sleepers at quarterbacks. Everybody is so invested in the draft that a lot of people know these names, like Michael Pratt from Tulane, 4-year starter, great timing, rhythm. I think he does a really good job throwing on the run as well. He got banged up this year. I thought the 2023 tape, the 2022 tape was even better than 2023. Pratt's a guy that he could go in the 5th round because of that injury this year. He can go in the 3rd round because teams are buying into the full sample size. Jordan Travis from Florida State, you want to talk about an injury. That's how his season ended. You wonder if he didn't get hurt, does Florida State get picked for the college football playoff? They probably do. Travis is undersized. The arm talent is not prototypical NFL strength, but he's a really good mobility, and I think he understands how to throw with touch. And then the final one, Devin Leary here. It's really weird with Devin Leary. You look at the stat line from 2021, before he was even at Kentucky, 35 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, played with timing, touch, accuracy. He hasn't looked like the same guy for 2 years now. And to be fair, once upon a time, and I'm not calling Devin Leary Brock Purdy, because he is not, I promise you, but that was exact criticism of Brock Purdy. When he was an underclassman, people said, this guy looks like a 1st or 2nd round quarterback. He did not finish college strong as an Iowa State program, really struggled throughout his final years. And then he goes into Kyle Shanahan's lab and everything works out.
Yeah, it's interesting with these 3 names because they all have attributes that certain NFL teams will highlight and say, I can work on the rest of the stuff, right? We talked about Pratt with the poise. We talked about Jordan Travis with the athleticism. Devin Leary has the arm to make pretty much every throw.
Right.
So what NFL team is saying, I like that attribute, and I can work on the rest of the game?
I would say Pratt is the most highly thought of because the sample size is really good. I think Travis is the guy teams are looking at and going, is this season-ending injury going to be able to get us a steal, right? Can we get Jordan Travis in the 5th or 6th round when once upon a time he could have been a 3rd or 4th round player? Leary is somebody that I think the stock has fallen off a little bit because of the inconsistencies, and we didn't even talk about Joe Milton because Joe Milton's not a sleeper necessarily from Tennessee, but you want to talk about tools, size, speed. He could throw the ball literally 700 feet. Yeah. Like, it's crazy, Joe Milton's talent, but you just wonder if it's ever going to transform into being a consistent quarterback.
And that's the fun of the day 3 guys, right? They're all flawed in some respects in their scouting reports, but the tools are there. That's why they're going to have their name called in the NFL draft, and so they are guys who could make an impact at the next level, and so they're names you need to know. If you did miss any of our videos previewing every single position in the lead up to the 2024 NFL draft, make sure you check out the YouTube page as we go through all of them, and you can check out Connor's scouting reports and mock draft in the final days before the NFL draft by going to NBCsports.com/NFL draft.